Welcome back to Luminous Star Fables. Let's take a deep dive as I explain a powerful intersection of psychology, cultural history, trauma recovery, and personal transformation. There is a moment in every survivor's life when the world goes quiet, not peaceful, but eerily still, like the silence after a storm. It is the moment when you finally see the truth you've been living inside of, even if you never had the words for it. And in that stillness, something inside you whispers the first honest sentence you've spoken to yourself in a long time. Something is deeply wrong here. This is where your story begins. Not with the narcissist, not with chaos, but with the courage it takes to recognize that the life you've been surviving is not the life you were meant to live. You have likely already lived through a difficult story and have made the courageous decision to seek a path forward. They often spend years trying to understand why the relationship feels so heavy, so confusing, so impossible to fix. The truth is simple but devastating. Narcissists do not change. They are fixed in place, loyal only to the false image they project to the world. You could have loved harder, tried more, sacrificed everything, and it still would not have been enough. The dysfunction was never yours to repair. And yet, survivors stay. Not because they are weak, but because the narcissist has spent years weaving a narrative designed to trap them. The first truth is that their behavior has already ended the relationship. The moment they violated trust, manipulated you, or harmed you. The second truth is that they are incapable of genuine love. What looked like care was control. What looked like protection was possession. The third truth is that they are reenacting their own unresolved trauma. You were cast into a role in a story, and they refuse to heal. When these truths rise to the surface, the fog begins to thin, the lies unravel, and the first spark of detachment appears. I'll handle the bills. You don't need to worry about money. Quit your job. I'll take care of us. Let's put everything in my name. The tactics are subtle at first. Restricted access to accounts. Being told you're bad with money. Debt is created in your name. Information withheld. Job opportunities are sabotaged. These are not accidents. They are a system. A financial cage built slowly, quietly, intentionally. By the time survivors search the words narcissist, financial abuse, the story is already written in their bank statements. Just like myself, every survivor reaches a moment of clarity, and some have what they might describe as an awakening, a missing paycheck, a secret credit card, a job opportunity that mysteriously vanished, a joint account that was never truly joint. This is the moment when the emotional fog lifts and the financial fog follows, and at that moment, a realization settles in. Detachment is a deliberate rerouting of energy and resources back to yourself. It is the survivor's first act of sovereignty. And this blueprint enables growth through 4 forms of strength. This is when survivors can reclaim their power. You're irresponsible. You can't survive alone. You're bad with money. None of these were ever true. Behavioral detachment is the moment you discontinue your availability. No more co-signing. No more shared passwords. No more access to your labor, your time, or your finances. Spiritual detachment is the moment you reclaim your identity, your purpose, and your inner truth. The second step is discontinuing availability. Their behavior ended the relationship. You owe them nothing. The third step is creating a safe outlet. The fourth step is making your healing a priority, shifting your identity from broken to becoming. Every small step reinforces your new story. Picture survivors who learn to refuse financial help that is dressed like bait. They challenge the belief that they are incapable. This is the moment the survivor stops being a resource in someone else's story and becomes the author of their own. There comes a day, and it always comes, when you look at your finances and feel something you haven't felt in years: recognition. This is the moment survivors describe as coming home, not to a place, but to themselves. Because financial recovery is not just about numbers. There seems to be a growing desire to become more financially literate while becoming more familiar with the principles of banking. The economy is changing too rapidly for anyone to just sit still and hope for the best. Action is necessary. I learned that it wasn't my heart that I needed to change the situation. It was my mind, because I was growing and changing regardless. When I changed my mind about my experiences, I challenged myself to make better decisions. And then the way that I chose to view myself challenges, life and others had changed. Clarity provided me with some courage to take further action to resolve long-standing and reoccurring issues. By challenging myself to make choices that would bring about necessary changes was not easy to process at first due to a misusage of my ego. I'm sharing these epiphanies with survivors stepping out of the shadows and into their own light, not because the narcissist released them.
Let's talk about something that so often stays hidden in the shadows. It's a type of control that doesn't leave any visible marks, but believe me, it can be just as damaging. We're talking about narcissistic financial abuse. So many people live through this for years before they even find the words for it. So today, we're going to put a name to it and break down exactly how it works. And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? That late night search is such a specific, lonely moment. It's that point where the numbers on the screen, the withdrawals, the missing funds, the debt, start screaming a story that you just can't ignore anymore. So, where does this all start? Well, it almost never begins with a big, obvious red flag. No, it's way more subtle than that. It creeps in disguised as something else entirely, something that looks a lot like love. Let's dig into how that control is first disguised as care. It so often starts with an offer that sounds wonderful, right? Hey, don't you worry about the bills. I've got this. It feels like such a relief. You feel seen, you feel taken care of, and at first, it actually feels pretty good. And then things might escalate a bit. The offer gets bigger. It's not just about handling the bills anymore. It starts to touch your independence, your career. It's framed as protection from the big, bad world. That job is so stressful for you. Why don't you just quit? I'll take care of everything. And just like that, dependency is sold to you as security. And then the mask comes off. What was sold as generosity, what was framed as protection, it was really just building the architecture for total control. The goal was never to care for you. It was to make you completely and utterly dependent. So let's be super clear about what we're actually talking about here. This isn't about one partner being better with budgets. Financial abuse is the deliberate restriction of your ability to make money, to get to your money, or to manage your money. And it's almost always tangled up with gaslighting and emotional attacks that make you doubt your own sanity. Let's look at some of the common tactics. You've got the invisible chains. No physical bruises, but suddenly you don't have the pin to your own debit card. Then there's weaponized competence. They constantly tell you you're just bad with money to justify keeping all the accounts and passwords secret. And maybe the most terrifying, debt used as a leash, taking out loans in your name, making you feel financially trapped and like you can never, ever leave. And it is so critical to understand that this dynamic does not only happen in romantic relationships. For so many people, this starts in childhood. Leaving a narcissistic family can feel like escaping a cult, because that blend of financial and emotional control was woven into your life from the very beginning. The chains were forged a long, long time ago. But for every person trapped in this cycle, there's a potential turning point. It's that moment where the fog starts to lift, just a little, and the truth of the situation becomes impossible to deny. The moment of reckoning. So what is that turning point? What does it look like? For some, it's a huge shock, finding a secret credit card statement with a massive balance. But for others, it's just the slow, painful realization after 1,000 tiny cuts. Either way, this is usually when the search for answers truly begins. And that search often looks a lot like this. First, you find articles that just give it a name, Financial Abuse 101, and it's a huge moment of validation. Then you might dig deeper into guides on covert narcissism that point out all the subtle tactics you've been experiencing. And then finally, you start to find articles on recovery, articles that offer something you desperately need, hope. This right here, this is the perspective shift that changes everything. You need to understand that you're not just breaking up with a person, you are staging a jailbreak. You are exiting an entire economic system that was built from the ground up to exploit you. It's a monumental act of liberation. Okay, so if leaving is like exiting a whole system, how on earth do you do it? Well, one of the most powerful strategies is something called detachment, but it's probably not what you think it is. This is so important because when people hear detachment, they think it means being cold or not caring. That's not it at all. Detachment isn't an emotional reaction. It is a deliberate, strategic choice. It's about consciously rerouting your time, your energy, and yes, your financial resources away from them and back toward the one person who matters most right now, you. And this is why detachment is so necessary. You have to accept this fundamental truth. You cannot change someone who doesn't want to change. You can't reach someone who doesn't want to be reached. Once you truly accept that, you can stop pouring your resources, your money, your love, your hope into a black hole that will never, ever give anything back. So once you've started to create that space for yourself through detachment, what's the next step? You arm yourself. And in this fight, your most powerful weapon is knowledge. Financial literacy isn't just about spreadsheets, it's about liberation. First off, knowledge calms the chaos. The fear of ending up on the street is a massive weapon abusers use. But when you actually sit down and look at the real numbers, what you have, what you owe, what you can earn, that overwhelming panic starts to get replaced with clarity. Knowledge takes away their weapon of fear. Next, on a mental level, literacy helps you rewrite the story. You can finally challenge those lies you were fed, like you're just bad with money. You start adding up the real cost of the relationship, the lost wages, the debt they ran up, the career you put on hold. Suddenly, they don't look like a provider anymore. They look like a massive financial liability. And finally, all that knowledge gets turned into action. When you understand your financial situation, you have the confidence and the clear roadmap to start making moves. You can open your own bank account, freeze your credit, and build a budget that is all about your future, not theirs. And that brings us to our final section, the actual work of rebuilding. This is where you shift from just surviving to actively thriving. It's about using specific, concrete tools to take back your life and, yes, your financial worth. Think of this as your 4-point plan for recovery. Number 1, invest in you for a change, whether that's therapy, a new certification, whatever it takes. 2, create a safe place, like a journal, to document everything that happened. 3, discontinue your availability. You are no longer on call. And 4, make your healing the number 1 priority, one small step at a time. And let's get really practical about what discontinuing availability means for your finances. It means you are no longer available to co-sign that car loan. You are no longer available to have your name on a joint credit card. You are no longer available to bail them out of trouble. In short, the bank of you is officially closed for business. Let's end with this because it is so incredibly important. Getting your finances in order isn't some separate, boring chore you do after you heal. No, it is an essential part of the healing itself. Every time you check your own bank balance, every dollar you put into your own savings account, that is an act of defiance. It's an act of reclaiming your power. For a long time, someone else was writing a story using your bank statements, a story of dependence and control. But that story is over. Now you get to pick up the pen. You are the author. So the only question left is the one on the screen. What's the first line in your new story?